I recorded this record mostly in a town called Echo Park, which is where I lived for the last two albums that I made as Jack's Mannequin. And they were really interesting, tricky years for a number of reasons for me. I lived in it was a really awesome house on a hill, and it was big, and it was all the things that you might think you would want out of life, like a big house on a hill somewhere. And but I was pretty fucking miserable most of the time I was there, and not miserable. That's an overstatement. But yeah, I sort of, my wife and I, we bailed out of there about 3 years ago, and that was sort of when this whole wilderness adventure began. And a lot of what the record and this song is about is sort of like going for broke for the right reasons, trying to find happiness, and clarity of thought and all these things, and not worrying about all the career stuff and all the things that I think a lot of us, and myself included, will equate to what success is and what happiness is. And this was the last song that was written for the Wilderness record. And it's largely about these days where I would travel up to Los Angeles. I live about an hour and a half south of there now, and I would travel up there. I'm working in my producer's garage, and some days he'd call me and he'd say, like I got to take my kids to school, or I'm running late. And I found myself driving to this old house where I lived for 6 years in this kind of tricky period of time in my life. And that's probably a pretty creepy thing to do, because I would sit outside of this old house and I would write notes about the time that I lived there, and sort of maybe as a way to work out my thoughts about what that was. And so when it came to writing the last song for the record, I decided to talk about that house and the time that I spent there, and how it was beautiful and it was ugly and it was everything in between, but how ultimately me and my family kind of got out of there to greener pastures, not to be totally cliche. But it's called Maps.